September 10th, 2023. Greetings. Welcome. Welcome to the campfire. Hanging out with your Hawkeye for a moment now, or again, some other date, some other time. Grand, great. Glad you could be here with me. Anyway, how's everybody doing? Just me. That's okay. This is meant to be quick anyway. Does it ever turn 1 hour later and I'm still chugging along? Okay, what did I wanted to hit briefly today? Okay, this was covered in part. We're going back to the Burning Monk, the story behind the shocking and iconic image of Thick Duck immolating himself on a Saigon street. In part, this was also mentioned. Johnny had also pointed it out today, just as I pointed out in one of my last live streams. This image here, and Oh, yeah, great. Okay, can I? No. Okay. Clearly looks like homeboy in the foreground is having a laugh, having a chat, looking at his pal, and of course, whether or not, certainly these men would have known each other. It's not for certain. Who knows? But the point is, though, homeboy here in the foreground, as Thick Duck is burning, or they're being doused with gasoline by, I believe it was two other monks. I was going to bring up a point or mention a point. Okay, did I just get rid of? Well, there you go. Just disappeared that link. Grand. Okay, we saw it. Now you see it. Now you don't. Beautiful. I was just going to point out this idea of something called the Kuleshov effect. Now, obviously, whether it could potentially apply in photography, you're shown a series of photos, or at least minimum 2 or more. You have an image, you're shown another image, and then a third image, and then of course it's this inevitability that the differences in the images, but then how the viewer interprets these images. So let's just look at this briefly: the Kuleshov effect and its impact on the viewer's emotions. Now, I'm not presenting, in part, maybe I am. I wasn't there. I don't know if there's video. Let's see, 1960. I don't know if there's video footage that exists of Thick Duck being burned. We know that there was at least one photographer, Malcolm Wild Brown, present. And he, as we spoke of earlier today on Johnny's channel, the Flipping Tables, that, oh goodness, 10 rolls of film. And assuming, yes, of course, jumping to conclusions, assuming that it was, there's the 35 millimeter film aspect. Either 20, 24, the standard, or 36 exposures per roll. We'll go with 36, even if it's 24, but I'm thinking of 36 exposures, 10 rolls, 360 exposures overall. If Brown did go through 10 rolls, 360 exposures, or if they were 24 exposures per roll, 240. Nonetheless, that's a lot of that. That's a lot of photographs. Okay, Kuleshov effect. Now that I cannot pull up what I just was looking at. Okay, so the laughing monk. This idea that could I guess I'll just say it. Could a substitute have been brought in? So obviously the photographs of a living man, a monk, and then could there have been a substitute? I'm not saying that that's where I'm going, but this idea though that all were presented with photographic evidence and the significance of this event, it leading to the Pulitzer Prize, Malcolm Wild Brown winning the Pulitzer Prize for this photograph. Was there a real man that was burned alive that day? So yeah, just having to ask the question, because it is camera trickery. Nothing new about it. Nothing new under the sun. Okay, and thus the Kuleshov effect. Explore everything you need to know about the Kuleshov effect and its impacts on how it impacts the viewer's emotions. Out of all the mysterious and powerful tools in a filmmaker's cinematic belt, this can also apply to photography, there's truly one technique that is the most awesome, which of course we would also learn as I presented in another live brief as well about the medical illustrators, the team that concocted the C19 image, the classic C19 that was the single image that was widely published, and it was created in order to provoke an emotional reaction. Okay, technique that is the most awesome. No, I'm not talking about the dolly zoom or the jump cut or even the Soviet montage theory to its full effect. No, today we're talking about the Kuleshov effect and how it shapes the very essence of how films are made and perceived by audiences big and small. Do you ever wonder why a particular shot makes you feel a specific way, or how come you can feel the uncanny effects of a certain cut when watching a tense sequence? Well, that's because the best filmmakers worldwide understand the Kuleshov effect and how to use it with cinematically sharp precision. But what is this mysterious filmmaking tool? Where does it come from and how can you use it? Let's find out. Here's the Kuleshov effect explained. Okay, we're not going to watch this, but developed in the 1910s and 20s by Russian filmmaker Lev Kuleshov. The Kuleshov effect is one of the main principles of editing and montage theory, as well as fundamental building block of film theory itself. The Kuleshov effect is a film editing technique that explores the mental phenomenon and how viewers can extract more meaning from the interaction of two connected shots than from a single static image. It suggests that a filmmaker can alter the intended perception of a character's emotions depending on the cut that precedes with it. Okay. All right. If this can clearly be obviously looked into further, I just wanted to point this out. By now, we question everything. Again, I'm not saying one way or the other, but the point is to ask questions, and that above all is what we're here to do. Question everything, be skeptical, and of course, I have actually uploaded I can't remember how many months ago, Hitchcock explaining Jesuit trained Alfred Hitchcock. So here's the master of disaster, the master of the slasher. Hitchcock explains the Kuleshov effect to Fletch Markle in 1964. Okay. And then, of course, the previous year in 63, June 11, you have the burning monk. Of course, later that year in 68, you have, of course, jumping around. Sure, many films being released that year, notably certain specific Westerns with a notable Clint Eastwood. I think of Steve McQueen, and a bunch of other A-list actors like in The Great Escape and so forth. Bullet, Never So Few, may have been in the late 50s actually, with McQueen and Sinatra. I'm forgetting dates. Anyway, nonetheless, important decade for film. But then, of course, 1968, back to this idea of the Kuleshov effect. But how about being able to transport an individual's mind from the plane on which we stand into somewhere outer space, a vast void, somewhere else, by a sequence of images. And Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey, 1968, and then 1969, the alleged moon landing, during which the celebration of the date fell of the suppression of the Jesuit order, the anniversary, so covering July 21st, 1969, fell in there for Apollo 11's so-called trip to the moon. Okay, so we've just briefly covered the Kuleshov effect. Of course, I'll supply links. Noting also today's 10 September. We're in the Pacific Standard Time. In Rome, it's now September 11th, while even the east coast of North America, Central Standard as well, September 11th. Maybe I'll cover some points tomorrow night. Maybe, not sure yet. Anyway, I did want to note, though, so Morocco. 2023 Marrakesh Shafi earthquake. So we have our September 8th. Okay, while we're discussing September 8th, let's look this up for a moment. Jesuit General numero 25, Francis Xavier Verns, who was born December 4th. You know what? Maybe that's why he's Francis Xavier, because Francisco Javier, his feast. Okay, his feast is also the 3rd. I thought it was the 4th. Okay, just want to double check that. Okay. So the fact that, could it be the same day? Absolutely. And then, of course, the August 19th death date, 1914 death date. So just also noting, this Jesuit Superior General, Francis Xavier Verns, was the general before Vladimir Ledachowski. So let's examine briefly. Look at this. We have a September 8th, 1906 date. Now, I'm not presenting we're going back in time. I'm presenting that because there's nothing new under the sun, that certain tools, certain mindsets, and again, this idea of a Sun Tzuan drum beat, that the Jesuit Superior General, there's the sound of his drum beat is always beating out a rhythm for his soldiers to hear and obey, perende a cadaver, in the manner of a corpse. So not only did, let's see, last month, August 8th, remember, the feast day of St. Dominic, the founder of the Dominican order, that has as its badge, what would you even call it? Dominican order, dog, torch. A dog in divine fire. Of course, this has to do with the mother of Dominic was pregnant, had a dream of a dog with a torch in his mouth. Hounds of the Lord. Okay, if I'm not going to find it in 1 second, I'll just leave it. But the fact that the image that encapsulates, summarizes the order is a dog with the torch in its mouth. Veritas. Truth. Yeah, sure. And then, of course, we remember ad majorem de gloriam, and the Jesuit, another maxim of go forth and set the world on fire. And then the Dominican order bleeding into the Jesuit order. The Dominicans were experts at torturing the body. The Jesuits, experts torturing the body and the mind, the soul, the spirit. Okay, so again, last month, Paradise, the Feast of St. Dominic. We have the fires that began in Hawaii. And now we have our significant earthquake. I'm not tracking this closely. I know about it, but the first thing I noticed, of course, I think it was Darnell had mentioned today, early in the stream, September 8th. But this just also happened to be a Jesuit Superior General date. Again, 25th Jesuit Superior General began his generalate 8 September 2023. 1906. And then, of course, the general be just before Ledachowski. And then, so these two generals, look at this. The events lead. So, ironically, the fact that here's the general that would have or however you want to describe it, underwrote the sinking of the Titanic to when did Archduke Ferdinand shot 1914 assassination, Archduke Franz Ferdinand. So June 3rd. No, what? No, that's not right. That's not right. June 28 June. Okay, so his generalate would have overlapped the beginning of World War One, and Ledachowski would have picked it up all the way into World War II, and of course his generalate beginning February 11th, 1915. And remember, Benedict XVI announced his retirement, so-called retirement from the papacy. Benedict the Kant says 16th announcement, February 11, 20. Can I type 2013? Okay, remember, from the Vatican, 10 February. We have a date that's, okay, we know that Benedict XVI began his papacy 19 April 2005. He announced his retirement 11 February 2013, and then eventually stepping down on 28 February 2013, opening the door for the openly first Jesuit white pope being Pope Jorge Mario Bergoglio, who would take the name Francis, or Francis the First. Okay, so back to this idea of dates and so on, also meaning mindsets and potentially even just overall plans. This is clearly brilliant. We just had, even I forgot to acknowledge this on September 3rd. On top of and just as it was noted, I'm sorry, I can't remember who had pointed it out, but the death date of Oliver Cromwell and the anniversary date, 3 September, but also Arupe stepping down, I believe after a stroke in 1981 on Francis Xavier's birthday, 7 April 1981, and eventually stepping down, opening the door for Peter John Kovenbach, who was a general for 9/11. Okay. So just wanted to point that out, but also in addition with this idea that in Morocco, but also Marrakesh Safi earthquake, and then my recollection of I believe it was an essay that George Orwell or Eric Arthur Blair wrote. I believe it was titled Marrakesh. It's been a while. The Orwells arrived in Morocco on September 11th or 11 September 1938. As the deposition before Robert Parr, the British consul of America, shows. ... Letter to H. Joyce, 12 February 1938. And I just wanted to briefly point out, we're given information that was that there was a nun, or it was an order of nuns that educated George Orwell, Eric Arthur Blair, aka George Orwell, at a young age. Anyway, just wanted to point that out. This connection to Orwell, Marrakesh, and then these drum beats, the Kuleshov effect. We're 10 September. Yep, Francis the First. Ironically, the back to the idea that Cartier, the so-called father of Canada, remember the well, it's not even irony. It's again going back 500 years, claiming the land for Francis the First, the King of France at the time. Anyway, hey, Smoggy G, good morning from Jeff Gent. Hey, good. Breakfast with Hawkeye. Yeah, soon it's going to be nighty night, nappy time. Yeah, maybe when you get caught up, Benjamin, I'll be done. Just wanted to hammer out a few points, revisiting a couple points that were I had hit as a response to Johnny's content. So the burning monk, the June 11, 1963, thick duck, the monk that was burned alive, or what's the word, emoliated. Gasoline was dumped on him. He sat and he lit the match and dropped it into his own lap, holding prayer beads. And again, I'm not in my position. I don't know. Remember, there's no existing video. There's however many eyewitnesses, and what one photographer, and that photographer won with a Roman Catholic background, raised Roman Catholic. So Malcolm Wild with an E, Brown with an E, having the similar name as Father Francis Brown. There's I want the full name. Francis Brown. Francis Patrick Mary Brown, who notably has a photography collection of notable figures and faces on the Titanic before he was commanded to get off that ship. Yeah, we didn't necessarily go down it, and it's great there's such a fascinating story with the Olympic. Was it switched? Yes, after having a collision with the HMS. No, there's the RMS. Olympic collides with Hawk. No pun intended. Titanic ship Olympic collides with HMS Hawk off the Isle of Wight on 20 September 1911. And then this broke the back. And information, well, that the Olympic had a so-called list. I can't remember if it was to port or to starboard, but it was subtle enough that it was noticeable. Okay, clearly don't need to go down the rabbit trail, but something going on there. So it was a false flag within a false flag within a false flag, just like the gunpowder plot, blown cover as cover. Certain people made shit tons of money. Certain people got the blame. And James Francis Cameron makes an award-winning film with two young prominent actors, Winslet and DiCaprio. And okay, let's just leave that. We'll leave it there. And I think nothing standing out of my notes. Yeah, I think we'll just leave it at that. Okay, sounds good. And do you think they already have? Absolutely. How about the idea? I don't think I've uploaded it. When did Fukushima? So 311, 2011. There is a fascinating, and okay, as questionable as this channel, it's been along the HARP report. Let's see. Remember, there are those that will say HARP, 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 high altitude aurora, blah. I can't remember the. Look at that. I'm reading it as if I'm reading it. High frequency active aurora research project. HARP report. Will it come up? That there's only one location in Alaska and that does all the damage, or there's 33 locations of the antenna array all over the so-called globe. All right, how would I look? The HARP report. I wonder if it'll come up. Le HARP report. Come on, bro. Where is it? There were a couple points made here on this channel, and it looks like it's not. So 2 years ago, 3 years ago. But supposedly it was data from the University of Alaska. I don't want to just start guessing again, locations and stuff. So I'll leave it. Yellowstone. Where is it? HARP evidence for Fukushima meltdown. And let's just look at the date that this is posted, just so we get a clear when he got. To me, I'm a little uncertain where, from what I remember, Alaska HARP was involved in Fukushima 9.0 earthquake. Very time as the HARP signal was building up energy, the satellite detected the big increase in infrared emissions from above the epicenter, which peaked in the hours before the quake. In other words, the atmosphere was heating up. It's more than just to do with the atmosphere. It's, again, not fully understanding it. Will it show it? But there's this. Again, just this idea of certain frequencies, and then the dates and times, and this information being presented, and was what happened in Fukushima and the surrounding area provoked by a certain amount of a certain amount of energy, which apparently it doesn't take much to provoke. It doesn't take much. Anyway, I will put, maybe at some point I'll re-examine this, because it's been a while since I visited this, but this, I'm glad it's still up at least. And again, posted back in 2014. Again, certainly, I think if this gentleman, certainly different views than my own, but some things certainly fascinating. And what are we as journalists, as investigators, examining as much information as we can, as dispassionately we can, without clearly, as crazy as certain things can sound, we don't just discard it. This is why it's important, of course. Set emotions aside. So, all right, I'll take a look briefly. Let's see. Yeah, I don't touch. I don't know. I haven't touched Dutch since in a long time. I can't remember what exactly. Walking away from his information, I can't. It may have actually been whether it's. I believe I mirrored a video of an interview of Weather War 101. We don't know much about this person, but. And which has also got me thinking, and I don't know if I don't have enough information to put together. I don't know if I'll publish it, but it's this idea of the, let's see, WSR 88D. So we're our Doppler. So the fact that this infrastructure already exists. Look at this. This already exists. This is so-called weather is forecasted, or is this how weather is manufactured? And then, of course, you look at these are just the American locations. All of the United States, all 4, used to be 10, now 4 Jesuit provinces are covered, overlapping with these WSR 88D radar stations. In Alaska, you have Hawaii. In Canada, we are blanketed as well. Not as it, of course, it's a little more. Let's see, it shows, yes. Here, more or less, this is Canada. So the tools that so-called show us weather or forecast weather are these the actual tools that are used in creating weather. And this look like some are on, and that's the thing. There's also the mobile versions, which are on Navy ships. I think they're also on cruise ships. So there's the variability. There's also, here's the static ones that, again, look at this, that literally blanket. They are everywhere, all over the flat earth. So what's really going on here? So anyway, I've got something kind of, I don't know if, again, it's, maybe I'll see what I don't know. It's about, remember, it's also in part, what's the point? And if it doesn't have a point, why even publish it? So that's where I'm at. But I've got something I'm kind of sort of working with this. So that's my thought about the energy. Let's see. Do you already have the technology? And I believe there was also, I think it was a National Geographic documentary, which I haven't been able to re-find, but a number of years ago, whether it was titled "Owning the Weather by 2025," and I think the weather has been owned long. Well, but back the idea 20 years ago, 22 years ago, the steering made the creation, potential creation, and the certain steering of Hurricane Erin, one that never hit Manhattan, the East Coast, and just examine the path of Hurricane Erin, which didn't hit that day. Okay, all right, I'll leave it at that. It's getting it's getting late. My goodness, one more. What? Excuse me. Got to get used to muting. All right, brothers. And so, apparently my analytics, 100% dudes, 100% dahoods. I think Maria's out there somewhere. So thank you for being being maybe the only woman listening to this. So, hey, thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you for being here. Benjamin Smoggy G, Jeff Chent, thank you. Have a good, enjoy your breakfast. Is it coffee, crumpets, jam, toast? Is there toast and beans? Is there eggs? Whatever you're having. Have a good day. Bless you guys. Much love. Probably we'll talk to you tomorrow night. Okay. All right. Bye for now.